Okay, so I've jumped ahead and added a couple of coils, and I've also smoothed out the edge. One thing that's important to take note of is if you do require that smooth finish, now's the time to do it, and do it as you go through each coil. Don't leave it 2 or 3 rows and then try and do it. It shifts walls and makes things more difficult. So please, if that's your choice you make, do it as you go. So I'm going to add a couple more coils. What I want to get across this time is, if you imagine this is the first part of my shape, okay, I'm making a fish and this is my fish's mouth, okay, so it's fairly straight like it'd be the lips. My fish is standing on end, so its head is going to grow this way and body goes in this direction. So this is the bottom of the fish. So as I place each coil this time round, what I need to consider is, if I want the shape to bell out, I can't just add the clay like that because it will fall off. I need to just gradually, very gradually, move the clay a little bit out each time. Okay, so I start with this coil. And once again, move it all the way around with those thumb marks all the way through. Okay, so that gives you a bit of an idea. You can see that it's starting to flange. I now need to obviously do the other side. Okay, so I've thrown the other half of the coil on so you can start to see how it's taking that flanging shape. I am able to move it a little bit with my fingers. The important part is when you come to the inside is that you start to shape it the way that you want it to go and use your other hand to support it. So I'm pushing that right in to create a very good bond and a good surface connection, all the while trying to create no air holes or air pockets so that when we come to firing we don't have any problems in the kiln. Once I've got that shape all the way around and exactly how I like it, I'll then start to add the next coil. Now it's very tempting at this point to start hanging them out further, and I've certainly done that and had to rebuild stuff in the past. It's always better to go just a little bit at a time and to push the shape out and stretch it a little bit rather than do it with the coil. Now I'm just going to put this coil on, and once I've done this one I'll come back and I'll show you how to attach another coil, because I'll show you an easier way as you get bigger. As you see, I've smoothed both sides out to hopefully try and make it look a little bit easier to see. You can definitely start to see the shape coming out now from the bottom of the mouth. So this will be the fish's head in essence curling around. And you can also start to see the same type of shape taking place from the inside. So that both sides match and the wall thickness is relatively even all the way through. That's what we're looking for, this wall thickness to be even, so that there's no point where there's more weight than another. And the easiest way to attach a coil, I'll do this with my other hand to make it a bit easier, is to start right parallel with the other point and push off across the top. Position it to where you want, that gives it an anchor point then. When you get to this piece here, which is always the awkward piece, where the next joint is, use your fingers to pinch and just snap it off. Just use the amount that you want to get a symmetrical part to finish off the layer. Once again, you smooth it apart and join those two bits together and go through the process of going around and joining it together with your thumb. Same with the outside. We come this way, join it with your thumb all the way around, and once you've got that part finished and you've smoothed the entire thing off to your satisfaction, because there's no second chance of clay. What you decide to leave it looking like on one day is pretty much how it will set once it's leather hard. You can manipulate it with tools, but any major marks and things will be left behind. So always be happy with the work that you've created at the time, because there's very little opportunity to go back and correct. Because of industrial protocols, no sanding of clay is no longer allowed due to the silica in the clay creating silicosis of the lungs. so the clay can only be worked while it's wet. Okay, so now that we have that in place, and I shape it to how I want, you can start to see that the clay is starting to get a bit of a wobble. Okay, which means the clay's starting to get to the point where it can't take too much more weight for the moisture content that it currently has in it. So once you're happy with your smoothness and your walls and you've got everything in place, the last final step for the lesson is to grab some plastic. This type of drop sheet plastic is good, shopping bags, anything that's fairly thin. What we're aiming to do is to try and cover our piece and leave 1/3 wrapped in plastic and 2/3 exposed. What that will do is it will create and draw moisture to the top third so that it stays wet and we can continue to work with it the following day or in a couple of days. If we're not coming back for a week or so, well then we would need to cover the whole thing completely as airtight as possible. But as we know that we'll all be back again on Wednesday, we just cover this piece here like so. We also want to leave the inside to dry as well, and just tuck that in so it doesn't go anywhere. That way when we come back we just take this off and we're ready to start again. This will then have dried and give us more support structure through this bottom shape here, and then we can continue to coil out or start to come back in depending on our shape.